I just got back from the largest indie author convention in the world. 20 books to 50K, Las Vegas. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author. I've written 26 books. I've published most of them, and I make these videos because there are a lot of authors out there who feel like they're not making it, and I don't want you to be one of them. I just spent a week in Las Vegas with a bunch of other authors, and in a lot of ways, it was fantastic. In other ways, it wasn't so great because now I feel like I've been smoking for my whole life, which I haven't. My lungs just don't appreciate the casino smoke. Black lung aside, I had a good time. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why you might want to go to 20 Books Vegas next year. Though now that I'm thinking about it, you actually won't be able to go to 20 Books Vegas next year because this year was the last year. There is, however, another convention starting up called Author Nation, and it's going to be taking over from 20 Books Vegas, and it'll pretty much be exactly the same thing, just under new ownership and rebranded to Author Nation. But let's talk about why you might want to go to this convention. Author Nation, as it's called now, is a conference for indie authors and is really geared towards early and mid-list authors. These might be authors who have not yet released a book. These might be authors who have released 1 or 2 books and are trying to get their careers up to speed. It might even be authors who have released a dozen books but find themselves stuck in the mid-list and are looking to improve their careers. Let's talk about these 3 people and why they might find value there. If you're an author who is just starting out, you are working on a manuscript, you haven't released your first book, Author Nation might be a good place for you because there's quite a bit of information aimed at that level. There are a lot of classes on things like how to set up a book in KDP, how to build a website initially, why it's important for you to start a newsletter. There's just a ton of information around sort of the basic building blocks of being an author. Now, I will say that you have to sort of filter it. Not all of the information is created equal. Not all of the information is even correct. And that's a hard thing because when you go to a convention like this, you want to just be able to listen and say, okay, these people know what they're talking about. Unfortunately, that's not always 100% true. But if you listen to this channel, if you keep watching these videos, by the time you go to Author Nation next year, you should have a pretty good idea of what's true and what's not as you're listening to it. The second type of person who I think will find value in this convention is someone who has just published a few books and is sort of looking to step into the arena properly. There's really no substitute for learning besides doing. And anybody who has published a couple of books is going to have learned a huge amount. But sometimes when you're in that position where you're like, okay, I've published a couple of books, I maybe have 1 out or I maybe have 2 out, but I don't exactly know where to go from here. When you're in that position, it's very helpful to start listening to what other authors are talking about. So while for the first individual, the person who is yet to publish, I think the sessions are pretty good. For anybody who has published a few books, the sessions start to become less valuable. There's still definitely stuff there that's good. And there's some advanced craft sessions that I think are really positive as well. But what's more important is some of the discussions that you're going to hear. You're going to hear other authors in your space talking about the different things that they're trying, the different tactics, the different strategies, the ways they're thinking about being an author. And all of those can be really helpful. At the very least, they can be helpful in encouraging you to continue going. Because building good community is so incredibly advantageous for authors. So if you're in that second position of having put out a couple of books and just sort of trying to figure out where do I go from here, then Author Nation might be a good fit for you. And then the third category of people that I think will benefit are people who are in the mid-list. So what is the mid-list? Typically, I would call mid-list $70,000 to maybe $500,000 or $600,000. And a lot of people who have been writing for a while get sort of stuck in that space. Now, I want to be careful when I say stuck because frankly, that's a fantastic place to be. If you are earning a living wage from your writing, you are part of a lucky few. But almost everybody who's in the midlist that I talk to wants to improve. And this is a fantastic place for making connections that can help you get to the next level. When I go to 20 Books to 50K or to what's now going to be called Author Nation, I often see the people who are in that position, who are in the midlist, not going to sessions. And instead, they spend all of their time networking, talking to publishers, talking to other authors, trying to get a better sense of the strategies that will take them out of the midlist and through whatever ceiling that they've hit. And I think that there's a huge amount of value in this. So if you find yourself in one of those three groups, you might want to consider Author Nation next year. It runs during November, and if you just Google Author Nation, you'll be able to find it. I'll try to put a link down in the description as well. But I'd really love to know, is a conference like this something that you'd be interested in? Let me know down in the comments if I'm going to see you there next year.